Fáilte, a Cháirde Gael. Welcome to the Rebel Matters podcast. Welcome back to the Rebel Matters podcast. I should be saying this is the 78th episode and the first one in a while. There have been a few things going on in the background that we've been doing to get ready for the next run of episodes. And the most significant of those is that Vicky Langan is now the producer of the Rebel Matters podcast. Some of you might remember me mentioning Vicky in the past on the show because she was part of the team that went out to Palestine in February this year to open up the Ackley Palestine gym in the Ida refugee camp. And Vicky is a Cork-based artist who has an absolute bucket load of projects and creative endeavours under her belt. So you can go and check out Vicky's own website if you want to find out a bit more about her. It's vickylangan.com. VICKYLANGAN.com. So it's class to have Vicky on board to help bring the podcast on to the next level, and I want to say a massive welcome to Vicky officially, and also want to say a really big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the show on Patreon, because that is what has made it possible to have a producer for the show in the first place. This is the 78th episode, and the show has always gone so far where I've kind of been like, right, okay, we're going to get to this landmark in episode numbers. 75 was the last big one. So we're setting 100 episodes as the next target and setting 100 patrons as the goal for by the 100th episode. And the best thing about the Rebel Matters podcast is you never know exactly where it's going to go. I didn't really envisage when I started it that there would be a team behind the podcast. And now there is, thanks to everyone who's been supporting the show on Patreon, and thanks to Vicky for coming on board. And hopefully when we get to the 100th episode, not only will we have some class new chats recorded and put out there into the internet world, but who knows where we'll be. We've got some really good plans over the next number of weeks and months to bring us up to the 100th episode, and it is kind of exciting, not knowing exactly where we're going to be, but we're going to keep moving it forward and seeing what we can do. So thanks a million to everyone who has been supporting the show. This week's episode kind of came from a phone call that my brother Carver and I had together sometime last year in 2019. Carver and I were chatting on the phone, and he was like, here, I went and seen this play in the Culturland in Belfast. It's class, it's called Spliced, and a lot of it seems really relevant to the paths that our lives have taken since we were back hurling with St. Paul's GA Club on the Shaws Road when we were just wee lads to what we're kind of doing now. And the play is a one-man show by Timmy Creed, and Timmy is an actor, obviously, because he has a one-man play called Spliced that we're going to be talking about in the show. But Timmy also played hurling for Bishopstown GAA and went away from the game for a while and came back to it. And the play, it's kind of like a really important perspective on the culture within the GAA that doesn't get talked about as often as other aspects of it. And it's also a very insightful intersection between sport and art and creativity and competition. And those are among the things that we chatted about on this episode. This show was recorded during the lockdown, actually not too far into the lockdown really, and at that stage all of the planned shows that Timmy had been cancelled. But I just logged on to the Spliced website, which is spliced.ie, spliced.ie, and there's a whole host of new dates up on the website. So it looks like Spliced is going back on the road. There's the 19th of September, Casual Arts Festival, 16th of October, Blanchardstown, 17th of October, Kildare. See any Cork ones here? The 5th to the 9th of November. There's a run of them in Cork in the Everyman. So you can go on and check the Spliced website to see when the show's going to be on somewhere near you. It's on in Belfast, actually, 29th and 30th of October, and the 22nd to the 26th of October in the Projects Arts Centre in Dublin. Cracker. It's even on in Mayo, the 19th of October. Anyway, go and check out that website and see when it's on somewhere around near wherever you are. It's a cracker play. The first time that I met Timmy was after the play when it was on in the Glen GA Club here in Cork, and I helped to facilitate the post-show discussion amongst members of the audience. And one of my favourite things about the play is that it's a real conversation starter. It sheds light on many of the very positive aspects of the GAA and our beautiful game of hurling. And it also opens up the conversation about aspects of the culture that exist, not only in the GAA, but in competitive sport in general, especially in team sports and especially amongst men, that are not as comfortable to talk about, but yet very, very important and a crucial part of any conversation in today's age if we want to make sport an enjoyable pastime, a sustainable one, and a wholesome one, which are all really important. And we also actually talked about the importance of play in this show, which is also really important, not just in the context of competitive sport, but for all of us. And it has a bit of crossover there with another one of the episodes that are upcoming in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about that when the time comes. But one other thing I wanted to just have a little chat about before we get stuck into the episode here with Timmy is one of our past guests on the show and a really good friend of ours, Claire Sands, is currently in the midst of a funded campaign to raise the funds so that she can make a new album. And as many of the guests in the last 15 or so episodes of the show have kind of alluded to, this is the time to support our small local businesses and favourite artists in whatever way we can. And Claire has a promo video for this album, which is class. Claire is an amazing artist, an amazing musician, and a very lovely person who deserves the support of anyone who likes her music and who wants to give her the opportunity to make this new album. Right now, there are 12 days left on the funded campaign, and it's 72% of the way there, 72% of the way to the target of €7,500 to make this new album. So if you're in a position to support Claire and support the making of this cracker new album, then you can just go to fundit.ie and put in Claire Sands and you'll see all the details there and you can support it. And even if you can't support it financially, it's really worthwhile just going on there and sharing the campaign on your own social media so that other people can see it, and we can all get together and chip in and get the funds together so that Claire can go and make this new album. Anyway, let's get stuck into this episode with Timmy Creed that was recorded back in the kind of silence of the lockdown and the chaos of the lockdown at the same time. Our chat started off with me asking Timmy where the play came from in the first place and what the background to the play was. And we kind of went from there. So I hope you enjoy this chat and episode 78 of the Rebel Matters podcast with Timmy Creed.
I suppose it comes from all the years of me playing, and unknowns to myself, there was obviously this story that was unfolding, that I was the main character of, not knowing that it was ever going to take the form of a play. But so it comes from a real love and dedication to playing hurling football for years, and then it comes to a point when I stopped playing to kind of pursue other things and a career as an actor. And this moment where I feel like I have to start creating my own work within that industry. And no matter how much I tried to escape it, the story that kept coming up was the story of the GAA. And, they say, like, some people say that it's easiest to write from your experience, and that was really the main experience I had in life was through the GAA. So I was kind of laughing at myself that the only thing I could write about was the GAA, having tried to distance myself from it, to kind of pursue other things and to try my hand at other things. So it was the attempt to put something out in the world artistically was the kind of next coming of the story. Then it was like the forming into the stage play of the story.
So like the play kind of like goes from, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but from just remembering back to the time that you did it up in the Glen, there's the period of time where you're kind of recalling your glory days playing for Bishopstown, and then there's the period of time after that when you kind of go off and you're taking a break from playing and going and just doing other stuff, and then there's the period of time, I guess there's kind of like a demarcation or somewhere along the line where you kind of return back to just like going back out onto the field. And then that's kind of 3 stages like that. When did what's the timeline there like?
So, I started playing when I was about 7, and I would have been the only one in the house I come from a family of 6 children, and I was the only one in the house that played sport. So that was kind of like that was the thing that kind of stood me out from everyone. So I kind of clung to that really, because it was making me more of an individual as I grew up into my teens. And then we had a lot of success as a late teenager with the club into my early 20s. And then I stopped playing when I was in 2013 properly, really, when I was 25, and then I came back when I was like 30. So that's kind of the timeline. And in between 25 and 30, I didn't play and gradually wanted less and less to do with it, and spent less time with the people that I would have been with all through the years growing up. And so then it took me by surprise that I went back, but it was definitely necessary for the show, but also for my own kind of association and opinion of myself as a GA player, but also as the GA as a whole thing, I think.
Having seen the play and stuff like that, and trying to think about like how we're going to kind of give, I guess, a good insight into the background of the play and like your own experience and stuff like that. That 5-year period from you were 25 to 30 is the period where you're kind of going off and experiencing different things and stuff like that. And like you're saying, kind of like wanting to move away from playing in a way and then finding yourself back. So there's must be sort of a balance of like things that you valued very dearly about the GA and things that you wanted to try and get away from. And that's kind of something that comes through in the play as well. So what were the things that made you kind of start to move away from wanting to play, and what elements of it like were trying to push you away at the time?
I started to see that it was there's a kind of a single focus, you know, for when you play GA for a long time, and you know yourself, you know, when you the idea that it becomes the central thing, that you dedicate your time to, your physical time, your mental time, you know, to be as good as you want to be at it. It requires a lot of mental and physical focus and energy. And I started to find myself become interested in other things, and I want to explore other things. And I'm not sure if I was always like that, or if there was just this, things just started to seem different outside the world of the GA that I was interested in, and I kind of wanted to go out and just kind of pursue them, and to have a crack at things. You know, I think I'm the kind of person who likes to do a lot of things as opposed to just focusing on one thing. Maybe that's to my detriment sometimes, but that's the kind of thing I like to do, try a lot of things. And seeing the dedication and the focus required, it made me feel like that I wasn't able to continue playing to the level that I wanted to, and be able to pursue the other things. And then that's kind of the moment when I decided to stop playing. And then it wasn't until I stopped playing then that I got to see the kind of culture of it for what it was, you know, the kind of there's the positives and the negatives to it, you know, the closeness of the group mentality, and the support of the lads, and the idea that you go out and you just physically throw yourself at something a number of times a week, you know, that's that you get so much from, you know. But then the idea that can have, that influences the mentality, and it influenced the way I thought, and it influenced the way I saw things, from being so focused on within the group, you know, because a big group of my friends who I played with we would have hung around together, we'd have played hurling together. So my whole life circle, my whole social circle was around this team. And unknowns to myself that's the way I thought. I had more of a group think as opposed more of an individual think, and I wanted to kind of, you know, I felt like I didn't have opinions on things that I should have had opinions on, because I hadn't given things enough thought. And the idea that I had an individual mental capacity that I wanted to explore was one of the things that, when I kind of saw it for what it was, I became quite interested in it.
I suppose the thing with going to see a play is you're telling your story, and then everyone who's watching it ends up putting their own sort of spin on it as it relates to themselves in a way. Yeah. And I think whenever I was at the play, one of the things that I suppose one of the things that resonated with me somewhat when I was watching it was the fact that when you grow up and you're playing, I suppose it relates to GA, but I mean, it relates to anything. If you're doing something that requires a lot of time and dedication, and you're kind of focusing on one thing, whether you're like a swimmer or a golfer or a musician or whatever, and you're just doing that and you're really focused on that there, the danger is probably something that happened to me as well whenever I was younger, was that you start to build up this identity around that one thing, which can become quite a narrow sort of center of focus, and then potentially you potentially miss out on some of the broader things. But also from a personal point of view, I kind of came to the realization that to have built up so much of your personal identity around doing one thing, regardless of what that thing is, it's kind of a dangerous place to live, because of the fact that you're kind of on the edge of that identity falling to pieces when it's something so external. Like if you, for example, break your leg or for one reason or another, find yourself not being able to do that thing anymore, it kind of raises a lot of questions about where that's going to leave you after that.
Yeah.
So was that something that kind of...
Totally, yeah. And, I I've thought at length about this, and because I've done the play around the place, a lot of people have said different things to me, And I remember I met this woman after I did it up in Dublin one time, and she said to me that her son is really interested in sport as well, but she saw the little piece of the play I did, and she was kind of worried for him. But then she said to me, isn't it brilliant to have a foundation in something, one thing, so then at least when you move out, you have a what's the word I'm looking for? You can, with a foundation in one thing, you can pit that against another thing. Does that make sense?
You can apply it to other things if
you can compare it. At least you have this grounding and this foundation of this thing. So this is what you are. So at least as you move out, you have a sense of something in yourself that you are. That is quite one of the brilliant things about dedicating yourself to something, but then the idea that it takes over your identity is I just hadn't thought about it, and I thought it was nice that this woman, that was her response to it, and yeah, the idea then that everything comes through that identity is the worrying thing, because your eyes and your ears and your mind become attuned to that identity, which is kind of it's an identity of a big, huge tribe, and that's the power of it, because it's connected to such a big tribe. But the individual identity doesn't matter as much when you're a part of such a big tribe. The GA extends out from your parish to your county to your country to it's nearly a worldwide thing. You're connected into this massive organization, and sometimes the more individual voices you have in it are, people like Joe Braley, who's he just speaks fairly individually about it, but he seems like a rare creature, in the world of the GA, someone who speaks kind of out for and against it. And that's as I got into my late 20s, I was kind of worried that I was so wrapped up in this identity. Was I going to be able to release myself from it to try and become more of an individual? And that is when that rattled me, it definitely rattled the shit out of me, that I had dedicated so much time to this thing, and now I'd stopped and I wanted to pursue something else. And that foundation as a GAA man, we'll say, wasn't really serving me as an individual trying to pursue individual things. And it's a slow unpacking still, of that. It's not only the GAA mind, but it's of a schooling mind of the modern way, or this, it's multi-layered, that this way that I saw the world, it's still evolving, but the capacity to see things and differently to the way I thought I could see them is kind of interesting and exciting, and hard as well, and confronting.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about this. And one of the things that, as I was saying earlier, one of the things that's given me life at the minute is being able to do more podcasts and do them a bit more regularly and stuff.
Yeah.
With having more time at home. And I think one of the other positive side effects of that is that you get to have these conversations with people from different fields as such. And
yeah, totally.
But then having them quite close together, it means that what people are saying has been quite fresh in my mind. When I'm doing this one, I'm thinking back to some of the stuff that has been said in the episodes over the last couple of weeks, and there's been 5 or 6 episodes, and then you start putting together things, even though people are from completely different fields. You're what? This is saying exactly the same thing as this other person said a couple of days ago.
So interesting,
from 2 different walks of life. And the thing that I'm thinking about right now is just something that you mentioned at the very end of what you said there about the kind of element of maybe not so got to do with specifically to do with the GA, but to do with a kind of schooling kind of thing, where on Maisa Daw, who's in the Palestinian hip hop band Dam, who came out a few episodes ago. She was saying that like you just keep hearing people saying be yourself and be individual and stuff on one hand, but then on the other hand, there's so much out there that's trying to like put you in a box and like make you just sit on that chair or get into that box for a certain amount of time, and to break out of that then can become quite a challenge. But then what you were saying there about the woman in Dublin, like I remember so many nights just lying in bed on my own, just thinking about hurling, thinking and thinking like that I was getting so much of it, even just as a teenager or whatever. I was thinking that I was being, in a way, like the hard work that I was putting in was being rewarded by the enjoyment of being able to play on the field and being able and making new friends and getting sort of mentorship from people who were older than me, not just the coaches, but the players that were older than me as well. And then getting recognition for it as well, from friends and family and people coming up to see your matches and stuff like that. And then from a very young age, I just kind of remember thinking, I can definitely apply this element of like, if I work hard at something or I'm creative with it, then I'll get to see the sort of bear the fruits of the labor later on, which is something that like 100% I've definitely applied to like education and going to college and just setting up a business. All that kind of stuff definitely stemmed from an early age of being able to learn that stuff on the field and in the dressing rooms and whatever, and even thinking about it back at home and pucking around. And then the other thing though that struck me is that like all those things are so valuable, really valuable insights into life and lessons in life, like the woman in Dublin was saying. Then the other thing that you mentioned was that like we have this game it's wild and it's free and it can teach you a lot and you get friends and you get life lessons and everything like that. But then has it come to the stage where it's become so regimented that then it's kind of, when you think about where the GAA came from, where it came from a place of the desire to get people to reconnect with their culture and their own identity, their own personal identity. And then the ironic thing is, like, as kind of you were saying, is to at a certain level, it's come so far that we kind of like are possibly disconnecting from the personal identity because it's come to the level where it's, I don't know why that is, because it's so requires such a large amount of time, or what is that like? But
yeah, like I think, I don't know, like I'm not totally 100% sure about the foundations of the GAA and like how it came about and all this. I know the game has been played for a game like hurling has been played for maybe thousands of years, like, but I think like the foundation of the GAA was perhaps to do with the foundation of the state as well, and having I could be wrong at this, so correct me if I'm wrong, if like the sense that you had a gathering of men in case they were needed, but also to reaffirm the culture, to help with the fight for the culture. And it felt like it had a mission, and that people knew why they were playing and they knew what they were doing, like, and they knew why they'd gather, and there was a kind of overarching sense of nationalism, and in case they were called and they'd be there, And I wonder, has that element of it being lost, the mission statement of it? But is it a new mission now, that's required? It's like, it feels like the mission now is just to be as fit and as strong and to win as many All-Irelands as you can, which is a fair mission. Like, if that's your mission, it's fair. Like, any man's mission is his own mission, but as a whole organization, what is the mission? Is there a mission for it? And the more it becomes more professional and more about winning and about developing as an athlete, the less of the cultural mission that perhaps it was founded on, and perhaps is still there, but it's not as clear as it could be, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably kind of what I was trying to get at as well, in the sense that, like, if you like, this is obviously just kind of like daydreaming about people who were playing hurling 100 years ago,
Yeah.
like they obviously weren't doing it to the same level that, like, I can see Park Kiev out the window here, like, and it's it's unbelievable that we have stadiums and thing, and like those types of facilities built on what's essentially like an amateur organization still, like, as far as the players are concerned anyway. But they didn't have like places like that, or the focus, I don't think, wasn't really as much on the top level winning at all costs, because it wasn't about that. Like you were saying, like when I think about 100 years ago or whatever, I'm thinking about people going to some field somewhere and playing a game against each other, like after mass on Sunday or something, or at the end of the day's work. Whereas now, to become even to be a sort of like committed club player, like there's a lot of sacrifice involved and other elements of your life. You can't do it without sacrificing other elements of your life, like whether that's spending time with your family or making career choices, having to drive like I know one of my friends drives for hours every week to go training, hours, and like I suppose that does change the dynamic of what the whole thing is about, really, then, doesn't it, for a lot of people?
Yeah, if that's the level of the time and commitment they're putting into it, then they kind of want something back from it. Is that what you're saying? Or
I think maybe it's just that, like, if you're coming through the ranks of the GA and then the end goal is to give yourself over as fully as possible to performing and playing and training and getting there and stuff, then other elements of your life are going to have to wait to be discovered, I guess, which I think is like one of the things I took away from your going to the play was like, you don't have to wait until you're flipping 50 until to go and discover what else is out in life just because you're playing.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. Like, it's like at what price does it? Even when you were saying there, having all the things you learn to be about hard work and dedication that you've applied to the rest of your life, but still you'd wonder, like, at what price to other parts of yourself are you doing that, and the lessons that it teach you, but then the lessons that it doesn't teach you because of the sole focus and because of the dedication. It's a kind of two-edged sword in a way. But what you were saying there about I forgot. I lost my train of thought now. The idea that I think even if you are to be wholeheartedly dedicated to something, I think to see that you don't have to wait. Like, you don't have to wait. You can. There are depths in you that are occurring as you play hurling, actually, and as you go out and play, and I suppose it's about allowing yourself to be open to the other parts of yourself, even when you're playing, that maybe it doesn't seem so straightforward, but you don't have to wait until you stop playing to see who what the other things you're interested in. Can you explore them through actually just playing the game, like through going training? Can the attitude that you have towards it just slightly open slightly to the way you play it or the way you interact with it?
Has a lot of the say the comment about the play and the whole personal journey that you kind of portray in the play got to do with a sort of stepping back from the collective team element of playing a team sport and being quite committed to it, to stepping back from that and it's kind of like a journey of self-discovery, like an inward journey of kind of reconnection with yourself. Mm-hmm. Is that what the play is about?
In a sense, yeah. In a sense, it is about that. Yeah, that's one of the. And it's funny too, because it's like, who is anybody to claim that you can do something differently than the way you do it, Or I suppose you got to be wary about people who claim that they but that's kind of not what I'm saying. But yeah, the stopping playing GAA, it became, because I was living a more individual life, it became a process of looking more inwardly to uncover things about myself that were sleeping, and that were kind of waiting to come out.
The thing that I liked the most about the play was the exact thing that you just said there. Is like I never got the sense that I was there being told what to do. It was you're sitting in the audience, just watching your personal story kind of unfold, and then the kind of thing as you walk away is like you can do whatever you want with it. Like you can ignore it. That's just some mental person running around on the stage there, and just forget about it. Or you can, if it connects with you on a certain level, then you can decide to kind of like explore it a little bit further. Which was a really nice thing to kind of be part of. The thing that I was going to ask you though, if you fancy talking about it, is when you went off and kind of undertook that kind of journey of personal discovery, like looking back on that now, even though it's probably a never ending journey really for all of us, but like looking back on it from this point, are there things there that you look back and think, holy shit, that was a really big lesson that I learned from that period?
I spent time in Canada definitely for over a year, and it's funny how the sole focus of that became about snowboarding, which is like, you could say in a way similar to the sole focus of hurling, and the want to get better at it. And except it was it's an individual sport, and you go up there with a group of lads, we'll say, but then as soon as you get off the chairlift, you're on your own, and it's like this exploration of self and body and mind as well, except you're in this kind of amazing natural landscape, and very privileged to be able to do that. And there's something about the individual physicality of that was new to me, and without anyone's fucking eyes on me, because I was always like a fucking skinny lad, I always knew that I was never strong. I was never really strong enough to, as the game progressed as well, there was more pressure on me to lift more weights, and I resented that pressure, and I resented the eyes of the managers being like, you're not strong enough, and I fucking, that used to bother me, because there was guys, just bigger lads on the team than me, that I'd never have the same strength, but I had other skills. But as weights became more of a thing, those skills weren't as important. It was more about putting mass on your bones, But to see this kind of floaty sport in snowboarding was definitely made me really excited that this is actually, I know people don't really do it in Ireland. That's why I'd never ever experienced it. I'd never seen a mountain that had snow on it. And then to see this whole, it's a really sporty world as well, except it's just this different kind of, it's got individuality, it's got style, it's got color, it's got backflips. And then from that, I started to do a lot of yoga when I stopped playing, which was also, it's funny how these relate back to physicality, which is obviously really important to me, and then in the yoga became about physicality, but it was more about using the physicality to explore the mentality, which was, that was a whole new thing for me, like to be able to sit after a yoga practice and to be with yourself and to constantly check into yourself as you're doing something, which is something that I've learned from doing it is a way that I can be out in the world, just feeling into how I'm feeling. And then I started to experiment with magic mushrooms when I think that was only like 5 years ago that I realized that you could pick them in Ireland. And it was like this light bulb moment of, okay, this is another world as well that I've totally missed it. It wasn't on my radar at all. And it obviously was going to come to me at some point, because it did. And that was another big turning point in the I think it was with the natural world really more than anything else. And I had started a road of kind of navel gazing. And then the mushrooms kind of opened up this whole other world of connection with the natural world, with the world as the universe as a whole thing, that the yoga was kind of bringing you there, but it was still kind of inward, whereas the mushrooms really expand out to the possibilities of existence and who we all are together on this small little ball at this moment,
Yeah.
And I think that continues. Like the good thing about the mushrooms is they come back every year, and they allow you another opportunity to explore the relationship with them, the relationship with the self, and the relationship with the outside world. And they're three big things, definitely, and they're weirdly all completely connected, but also completely separate in their own ways, And now, as I continue, like they become more and more morphed into the one thing, they're all kind of more connected to an essence of something than at the time they were all quite individual.
So it sounds like stepping back from sort of being a part of a group and kind of undertaking more individual pursuits seems to have kind of reconnected or opened up some sort of like a portal to your creativity that you might not have been able to express that fully as being part of a kind of a collective or a team. Is that somewhat accurate?
I think it is, and I think the finding of my voice, and the finding of the individuality has come with me spending time doing things on my own, I think. And the fact that the play was about the GAA, I couldn't have written the show about the GAA from being still within it. I think I had to come outside of it to see it and to see myself outside of it and what I was like in it, and to come back into it to have a perspective on it that I felt was worthy of sharing. I think if I stayed in it, I wouldn't have had the same perspective that I would have now. And if I hadn't gone back, I wouldn't have had the same perspective that I do now as I would have before I went back. So the need to find a voice and to find some sort of individual understanding was definitely important to the staging of the play.
Another really cool thing that I thought coming away from the play that time was that hurling is inherently, in its purest form, an extremely creative thing to do.
Yeah, totally.
Because of the skills that are involved and like even to the rules of the game and the endless possibilities of things that you can do with the ball and do with yourself, and how everything just interacts with each other. And to hear you talking about the individual things that you went off and did in that time whenever you left and went to Canada, say, for example, the thing that I was thinking when I was coming away was that, like, for people who see the play and who are kind of tuning into the message that you're delivering through the play and through talking about it, which is a really important part of the whole thing as well, I think, is that, like, you could reconnect to your kind of like individual voice and that whole sense of like creativity and being able to express yourself with the game of hurling as well, only just to view it through the right kind of lens and to kind of reconnect with yourself as a person through the game, like you were saying earlier, I think.
Yeah, totally. And it took me to go away from it, to understand to see the creative side of it and to see the creative side of myself. Whereas I just didn't have the tools, or I didn't have the awareness that I could think about it in that way, or I could think about myself in that way. And it's kind of as simple as just, like allowing the possibility within yourself of the creativity and the openness to even the smallest things could actually mean something else to you, as opposed to the habitual, regular way you see things. And it's just the awareness and the excitement that one could be creative with kind of anything, and that everything is creative, and it's not just a regimented, that's the love-hate relationship with hurling as well. You see the beauty of it, and the creativity of the game, and the connection with other people, and with yourself, and with something that's ancient and that is kind of even hard to grasp when you're playing it, but that there's this regimented nature to it too, that often you find lads who get fucking pissed off about it because they have to do all this training and they have to dedicate so much effort, whereas I suppose it's about mentality, isn't it? Like how you view it. If you made the decision that that's what you want to do, and that's what you want to play, how can you remove the idea of this regimented, kind of rigid mentality, and open up the possibility that it's a more malleable, creative, endless space of other possibilities as well? And that might sound like a bit fucking impossible or something, but I think the habitual way we interact with things can be changed, and it can be flipped in an instant. Maybe sounds too simplistic, but it can, like with anything, you can just change your perspective on something. Maybe it happens needs to happen over time, but the idea that you can think differently about something just when you think about it differently. So, but I wonder, can you play the game in a different way than the way you're used to playing it?
Like that raises a good few really important questions, I think. And just you mentioned Joe Brawley earlier. I think I might have heard him saying there during the year about how he was kind of just lamenting the fact that Gaelic football had become so much about the kind of regiment and the training, and even the other training that you do outside of the football training, and that it was questioning whether the joy was being taken out of the game for a lot of players because of the amount of travel and the amount of training and everything else that goes on around it. And not to say that we would want our games to like go back to the way they were 100 years ago or anything, but at the same time, we're going along a certain path where the performance and the winning has become the main thing a lot of the time, where maybe now we are going back to coming around full circle, where we start to reconnect with the creative side of it. And I guess have a bit of a unique enough perspective in this, in that like I've worked with a lot of hurling and football players at all levels, whatever, just through the kind of strength and conditioning work and stuff like that. And one definite thing that, it's a stark contrast to how a 12-year-old goes out to play hurling compared to how a 25-year-old goes out to play hurling, because the 12-year-old's going out to play, and I think there's a large element of that playfulness that gets lost somewhere along the way for the adult player, which for me is kind of like it's a real pity if that is the case, you know what I mean? Because play is such an important part of life, and such a joyful thing to be able to do, and to start off in something where you're playing and then end up in something where you're not playing anymore. You're just going to do it because you have to win, are two completely different things. And I think like what you're saying there is right. And it's a matter of perspective, whether you decide to engage with the playful side, even as an adult player.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, imagine if you're playing wing back, and some fella just leaps up, he whips the ball from you, he puts you on your ass, you're landed on the ground, and you watch your man from the ground just bearing the ball over the bar. The absolute idiocy and foolishness of the fool he made of you. Can you rejoice that with him, and to accept the challenge that he stepped out together, and in that moment he made an absolute fool of you, and isn't that fucking brilliant? and he's it's up to you to give him the foolish fucking stand the next time, you know, like it's a passing of joy, you know, it's not this like bitter hatred and that you inwardly give out, inwardly bash yourself after that moment, and then the next ball has to be, there's even more pressure on you for the next ball, you know. It's like this exchange of, no, you're an idiot, no, you can be, I'll let you lead this one. Like, it's not quite as formal as that, but the essence of that, you know, that we're all just there to play, and when you're made a fool of, to be like, yeah, accept the acceptance of it, you know, that it's not a harsh reality, it's a beautiful reality, whatever happens, you know, whether you win or lose, like, and yeah,
like that perspective is something that I think is priceless, because actually a few years ago I was involved in making a documentary about the sort of mental health and how the mental health crisis in Ireland has, I mean, it's impacted every town, village in Ireland, and the GAs in every town and village in Ireland as well. And so we went around just kind of going to different GA clubs and talking to people who had had bereavements connected with suicide. And, you know, a part of it, it's not to say like it was just, I guess, I mean, the pressure that comes with playing a sport where you feel like I think there's a difference between that thing that you were saying about like, oh, he made a fool out of me, I'm going to make a fool out of him the next time, and then it's playful. There's a big difference between that and getting the ball taken off you and your man buries a goal in the back of the net, or you play shit and then you go home feeling like shit. I mean, it's basically the same kind of thing happened on the field, except you're going away with one of them thinking you had a great time, and the other one you're going home thinking you're a failure. And I think that from a mental health point of view, the kind of description that you gave of how playing can be actually playful is a really important thing as it relates to mental health as well.
Yeah, and I don't think the pressure of it, it's a pressure cooker in a way, you know, being part of any group actually is a pressure cooker, because you put yourself on the line and you acknowledge the unwritten contract is that you're part of this group and you're going to give everything for this group. And if it doesn't work out that way, then it kind of comes back on you. But that's in the kind of nearly the material kind of everyday sense of it, the kind of in the physical sense of it. But if you zoom out slightly from that agreement, you see the utter kind of joy, and sometimes we can't see the joy in the thing when we're actually buried in it, because we're blinded by, you know, we get so into the thing, so into the match or the whatever it is, the relationship or the thing, that we actually can't see the joy in it, because we're so entangled in our own head as to how we're going to do it, that we can't see that actually it's a lot simpler and softer and joyful than maybe we give ourselves credit for, you know, because we put so much pressure on ourselves to be as good as we can for the group.
It would be fair to say as well, though, that a lot of that pressure does come from external sources, because of the fact, like, I mean, from a young age, like, I know things seem to be changing a bit now, like, but I remember I know things from being under 14. Like, I remember our coach Paul Crossy, who was chain smoking cigarettes in the dressing room at a time at half time, or banging his hurley off the table, being like, "Do it for Uncle Paul." He's chain smoking, and then there would be huge pressure to go out there and like beat the living shit out of the fellas on the other team and stuff. But at the same time, you know, like, obviously we loved it. But then as you move into the adult ranks, the pressure to perform and the pressure to win, it's not just a personal pressure. It does come from outside sources as well. But I mean, I think the most valuable thing to realize is that kind of pressure is pressure that you can decide to release at any stage, because you can just sort of get to the place where you're not taking the external pressure on to your own shoulders, and then decide to play the game in a creative way, which kind of like ironically is going to make it more possible that you're going to win. But,
it's a weird this playing anything, like, you know, and dedicating your time to anything. It has a weird. There's always two sides to it, and the more you dedicate to something, probably actually nearly more times than not, the better you will get at it, and not necessarily the more joy you'll get from it, but I think maybe we like to think that the better we get at something, the more joy we get from it, but that actually isn't always the case, you know. That sometimes the more we put into something, we can actually end up bleeding the life out of it, you know, because we're holding it in too high a regard as has potentially negative effects on us.
I think that like kind of goes back to, like, that's the whole point of playing an amateur sport, is that you're doing something because you love doing it, and you're not forced to make a living out of it as such. And it kind of is an era of sort of like quasi-professionalism in the GA, where the standards are expected to be professional, but the players are amateur. And I think that maybe the negative side of that is that, you know, the way that thing they say that if you start doing the thing that you love as a job, then, like what you said, you kind of get it drains the joy out of it, like possibly.
Totally, like, totally. I suppose it's just checking into the reason why you're up there in the first place. You know, the reason why you're doing it is because or whatever, for whatever reason you're doing it, to remember that, I suppose, because when something becomes so central to your life, the stakes of it are increased, and our interaction with it becomes more intense, because, you know, it's like when you're in a relationship with someone for years, like, you know, at the beginning you kind of say anything. Well, maybe you could say anything all the time, but who knows? I don't know. You know, like, it gets to the point where, like, the stakes, you've been together for so many years, so the stakes of it are increased, that if someone says something about something, it has the potential to really damage things, and you can't go back. You know, it's like, so when you play something for so long, or you dedicate, you know, like I've been acting for like 10 years, you know, so like the stakes of it is like, I build up my interest in it increases, and the energy I put into it increases, and the what's on the line is for some reason, it seems to be, it increases the more you do it. Like the more important thing, the thing becomes to me, and the more I tell myself that this is the road I'm on, then the more serious I should be taking the road, you know. Whereas always in acting, they're telling you, like, to play, like, and to fuck up and to fail and to, like, not take it seriously. The minute you start taking it seriously, you lose the element of play, and you lose the fun, and you lose the joy as to why you're doing it. But then on the other hand, I want to be focused, and I want to be dedicated, and I want to work hard, but it's like both things exist in the same moment. This idea of you taking the thing seriously, but also you being able to just fuck the thing out the window and say, this is all a fucking crack, you know. It's I suppose there's a fine balance there. It's the same with a relationship or with a job or anything, you know. It's like and I suppose we're constantly going from one. It's the same as with our mental health as well, isn't it? Like, we're constantly going from one into the other, like, hopefully, and one teaches us about one is constantly teaching us about how to do the other, like the play and the serious and the dark and the light.
That's the thing, like, as in there's the balance, like the yin and the yang or whatever, and that's what makes the whole thing work. And if you have too much of one or too much of the other, then it's not going to work.
And that's so embedded in, like, seeing as we're talking about hurling, like, you know, it's so embedded in a hurling match or in a hurling moment, you know. The ball goes in between two guys, you know, one guy is going to come away with the ball, and it's just a balance, you know. It's in the exchange. It has everything. It has all the emotions, but one person has to feel one way in one moment and the other person has to feel the other way in the other moment, and then it's just like this exchange that's happening between the players. And yeah,
But in a way, to kind of go back to the whole thing about like the beauty of hurling as a game is it contains all the elements of like the sort of yin and yang within the game. Like when you think about like Dermot O'Sullivan putting your man on his back in the Limerick match years ago and banging the ball over the bar from about 140 yards or something, and then you think about like I can remember in the 1999 All-Ireland quarter-final, John Troy, who was playing for Offaly against Antrim in Croke Park, scored this goal where he just like tapped the ball on the ground, popped it into his left hand, did a little dummy, and then just buried it in the back of the net. And it was kind of like watching a ballet dancer or something like that. I know this is like, which is unreal. This is like having a deep philosophical chat about hurling
this moment.
And like, and this moment, and then kind of digging in a little bit. But then let's say, hypothetically speaking, and that something like that happens in a game, and then the person comes away with it being like, fuck it, that was class. And sure, I mean, it was just a moment of time and it's gone now, and the next time could be me getting floored or whatever. And then I mean, that's a perspective that takes that pressure away in many respects, because otherwise like we're kind of getting into a conversation about how much effort we put into maintaining sort of like an ego about ourselves, which is kind of like something that we manufacture ourselves and put as a front. That takes up a lot of energy. Yeah.
And it's like the futility of that moment. It's just one moment, but it becomes this lifelong part of him, you know? It's like, it's just a fleeting moment that disappears, and then it's the next ball, and it's the next moment, and it's how you interact with the next ball. Whereas for some reason that becomes this like iconic moment, like blown out of all proportions.